Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can build this really cool Millennium Falcon wall art. It's multi-layered, you can see it's got a lot going on in here, a lot of details, and it's super easy to cut out on your xTool laser. I use the S1 for this. Of course you could use the M1 or any other of their lasers to create this project. So also in the project I use the xTool Airbrush to paint the base this white color as well as the frame on the top layer. I painted it black, and I think just that extra little bit of color makes these parts pop out. So I'll show you how I did that in this video. And it's really easy. It's a really good weekend project, and I'll show you where you can get the files on Atom for free and get this thing downloaded, cut out, and you can put it together in no time. So let's hang in there and I'll show you how I did it in this project. Thanks.
Thanks to this user who's put this out for us for free. So definitely go grab your own. I'll put the link in the description or in the comments, so that way you can easily grab a hold of this and use it for yours. So whenever I opened it up in xTool Studio, this is set up for the M1 Ultra, and all of them are on one canvas, so kind of jumbled up. So I cleaned it up a little bit, and so I've got it here in a project for the S1. I put each of the layers on a different canvas because I'm going to cut them out individually, because I'm trying to use the maximum area of one piece of material. So I have 12 by 12 pieces of 1/8 inch, and I actually had a piece of 1/4 inch plywood that was only it was 11 inches by 11 inches. So I'm going to go a little bit under that and use it for the base plate, the base layer here. And so I've upped these to be 11 inches in the width, so that's the widest dimension of it. So that's as big as I can go on this particular project. And then so all you got to do is do that to every layer, so that way they all match up. And the thing to keep in mind is to be sure that you have the lock for keeping the same proportions or the dimensions. So like for example here, the default was 9.5. I'm going to up that to 11 inches and hit enter, and it will scale up the height accordingly, so that way it's the same dimensions as it is originally, just larger. That's one of the really nice things about having the laser engraver. I can make these things as big or as small as I want to. It's just a matter of changing the dimensions. So we've got all that stuff set up. We're going to change the material type for the base plate, because like I mentioned, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch plywood for this, and then all the other layers will be that 1/8 inch basswood plywood, so I can use that setting. One of the things that it has, if you use the default settings or the quick settings in xTool Studio, is it slows it down to just 3 millimeters a second for the 20-watt laser. But what I like to do is actually run this up to 8 millimeters per second. I like to actually run this up to 9 millimeters per second and do 2 passes. And we'll actually lower the focus on each pass. So since we're doing 2 passes, then this will enable it to step down and cut lower, and in 2 passes we should be able to get through it, no problem. And before I ran it at like 90% power, and I think this just helps at this speed to get not a lot of char. It reduces the amount of char. So those settings are good. On the other pieces, I'm going to just use the default settings here, although I do like to run this down to 8 millimeters per second, and we're going to do a single pass.
Alright, so I've got everything fired up. I'm going to put my material in. This is that 1/4 inch thick plywood. This is just like a birch plywood, and I'm going to kind of look at both sides. That's what I usually like to do. Pick out the side that has the least amount of defects and stuff. It's kind of got that knot there, so I think this side's going to look a little bit cleaner. So, and I also like to kind of orient the grain in the direction of, you know, whatever it is that I'm using. So like where this is going to be running the long ways of the Millennium Falcon, it's going to be going this way, so I want the grain to be going in that direction as well. So we'll set this down in the laser bed, and we'll get a measurement on the thickness of the material to get the laser set focused. Nice. All right, so this is the first layer. That cut out really good and clean. That's the base, and again, I wanted it to be, you know, that 1/4 inch material because it's thicker. It'd be a lot more sturdy. So that's really good and clean. And like I mentioned, doing the 2 passes helped to just reduce the amount of char around the edges. So I'm not picking it up on the camera really well, but it's just not as black, and it's not a lot of overburn like you would get if you just go super slow and just have a ton of power. So let's get in there and set up our other layers. Now we're going to switch over to the basswood plywood. Alright, so here are all the pieces cut out and ready to go. I just need to color them and add, I think I'm going to do a stain on one layer. We're going to do black on the frame on the top layer, just a natural wood color on this one. Of course, there's the frame, that's going to be black. This part is going to be stained a dark color, and I think the base is going to be a white. So that way that's going to show through all the layers and give some contrast. So I think next thing we need to do is get set up and start adding the color. So the stain that I'm going to use is this red oak, and because there's so many little cutouts in this, you're not going to be able to just wipe across. The better method is to put some stain on this and just pat it on. And you might, some of these larger areas, you might be able to wipe it across, but just pat it in there, and I think that'll make it cover a lot better. So, and also try to keep from having so much stain on your rag. So, and if you do have, you know, are wiping across, just do it gently, so that way you don't catch anything and accidentally tear it. Just pat it on there and then gently wipe it across. That'll distribute the stain, and then you can just wipe it across to take off any excess. There we go. That's going to look good. And for this layer, I'm going to use shellac to darken it a little bit and bring out the wood grain, but I'm not going to stain it. I want that contrast. So again, being careful not to rake across because it will more than likely break some of these fine small pieces. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is get set up with my paint and the spray gun here. I'm going to paint this part black, so it's not going to use much paint at all. And then this section I'm going to paint white, so I've got the two different little paint jars, the hose and the nozzle for each. And then we're going to get all this set up and go out and spray it. So I've got the white in there. Just to squirt some in the bottle. I did use a little bit of the thinner because it is a little bit thick, it seemed. So I did that, and we'll put the nozzle onto our little adapter here. So this little connection goes together like that. We just thread this on. And then the hose, it has this little cut in the bottom of it, so you want that to go down, and then this, the square cut in, goes up into that nozzle, so like that. Okay, we'll take and put this together like that, and then we just thread that on, and that's how it'll go on. And let's do the black. Now we just take and put the battery in. It's ready to spray. And again, just be sure whenever you put your nozzle on that it's lined up with the yellow spray nozzle. Alright, so now we'll just take the sprayer. We've already got it primed up, doesn't take much. And we're just going to go around. Nice and easy like that, and we've got it covered. We'll probably let that dry just for a few moments, and then we'll come back and do a second coat, so that way it's good and even. And then we'll switch over. Alright, so again, I just quickly changed out, and now I've got the white paint on. We'll prime it. Getting pretty decent coverage. I'm going to let that set for a little bit and dry, and then we'll come back and do another coat. White is always a hard color to get very good coverage, so you usually have to do more than one coat. Alright, so with the white we got some pretty good coverage. Everything's looking good. I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to start working on assembly. So with these multi-layer projects, I like to just do them one layer at a time and build them up, gluing them together, because it's really hard to keep everything lined up if you do multiple layers gluing them at the same time. So the simple thing to do is just to put some wood or something flat on the top, so that way you're pressing down evenly on the entire object, and put something heavy, like I've put this can of paint on top. And so this is the first layer, so that's together pretty good. So we'll just continue to work our way up to the next next layer and put it on top and glue it down. And I always put the glue on the back side. So I always put the glue on the back side so that way I don't have to clean up any glue on the lower layer. All right, now we're on the home stretch. All I need to do is put this, the border that we painted black on the very top and glue that down. Put some weight on it one more time, make sure all that gets good and attached well, and then we're ready to maybe put a hanger on the back and we'll be done with this project. So pretty awesome. So here we are with the finished product. Everything turned out really well on this. Really like how everything looks. The layers really did well with the contrast. And so just overall, a really fun project, pretty easy to do. And that's something, like I said, you can do this, get it on Atom and cut this out with your S1. Hope you've enjoyed watching this and hope this gives you some ideas and inspires you to inspires you for a project that you can do with your S1.